Let's do it.
Anytime.
Are you gonna switch this on, or what do we do?
Yeah. Well, the music cuts out. Though. Oh, come on.
Okay,
Jeremy can fix it in post.
I'll fix it in post.
beautiful. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2021 Game Byties. It's here. We're here. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing this again. It's the Game Byties, guys. 2021. This evening, my name is LeGrand Jolly. I'm your host for these proceedings, which are very important, where we discuss all of the games that we have picked as our favorite games for the Game Byties this year. Joined with me, as always, we have one Jeremy Lamont. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the new year, and we will make our definitive proclamations about the old year.
You whatever other people's opinions are, throw them out. Here, there.
That's exactly right. We are resting on that. That's what we're doing here.
We also have Dale Jones. Hello, Dale.
Not resting on our laurels. We're resting on the affirmation that we have the definitive opinion of the year.
We're resting on our morals high ground.
That's Jared. Hello, Jared.
Yeah. Hi.
And for those of you watching on YouTube, hello.
Hello out there.
And if you're not watching on YouTube, come check out the YouTube video every once in a while. I don't know.
We had that cool new intro. Well, hold on a minute. Let's think about this.
Are we going to appreciate this?
Well, we do have to know. So one of our listeners, Putnik Santiago, made us our own intro for our video podcast with its own theme song. And
it's awesome. It's like super awesome.
Yeah. So now it's part of our show.
It's really actually fantastic. It was so
great.
Like I was just like grinning ear to ear like an idiot watching the whole thing. It's really good.
It's right up our alley.
So this show is nothing more than us talking about 2021 and the video games that we played. The way that we do this is the way that we've done this every year. We've each selected three, count them, 1, 2, 3, our top 3 video games of the year. The rule is that these video games have to have been released in this year, 2021, or last year, 2021. Sorry, today is officially 2021.
In the year 2021.
Yes, but the games were all released in 2021. We also have a small section where we talk about games that may be older games, because this is the Game By Show, guys. Let's be honest. Let's be real. We all play a lot of older games as well.
Mostly older games.
We'll be discussing
literally
that.
All.
So there'll be a section where we talk about older games that we did discover this year, but may not have come out this year, and that's okay.
Right.
So we're going to be doing that as well, and having a good old time doing it. So, yeah, shall we get started?
That's it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, who's kicking this thing off? I guess. I guess I'm in the list. I'm in the list first, I suppose.
Let's do it in the list order.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 3 game of 2021 is a surprise to everybody. It's Halo Infinite, and I teased this, and I told Jeremy, like, hey, I might do this.
Hey,
and he was like, no way.
Infinite,
Halo Infinite is not very good, but something about Halo Infinite captured my, I don't know, it captured my interest somehow, and I believe it's a combination of the multiplayer and the single player as well, because the single player is great. It's open world. They added a grappling hook, which is fun as hell to just fly around the world. The combat is as Halo as ever, but because of the grappling hook, it just feels really good and really clean to kind of run around in. Then I actually found myself playing quite a bit of the multiplayer. In fact, I played a couple rounds today.
I played around today, and you know what was interesting is that when I played the campaign, I had frame rate issues, but when I played multiplayer, it was fine.
I think it's the map size, dude.
Yeah,
It's
maybe.
gotta be, right? Like there is something about that big, huge open world map that just kind of it makes my machine. I've got a 3080 graphics card. It does make it chug a little bit, and by chug I mean I'm getting like 60 frames a second. But
can I ask a question? Why are you guys not just like streaming this from Xbox.com/?
Why would I? I've got a 3080 graphics card. I want to play on an ultra wide resolution. Why would I ever stream it?
I've got like an 8-year-old graphics card, and I've already downloaded the game. Why would I bother?
If I didn't have a good machine, then sure, Jeremy, I would stream it.
Maybe I should learn how to do that.
I am. Well, you do have xCloud now. Did you get Ultimate, the Xbox?
Yeah,
Game
I have
Pass
Ultimate. So I guess that comes.
Xbox.com/play.
Give it a shot, man. It's
xCloud.
actually not too bad streaming.
It's
will try that.
excellent.
It'll probably help you out on your frame
And
rate
it's really
issue,
good for multiplayer, yeah, because your connection for the multiplayer servers is like from their server farm to their servers. So even if you are not that great, you
man.
at least have the benefit of
Yeah,
Not bad.
And
except for
trust me, I am not.
there's a
that
little bit of
great.
latency on your multiplayer, which
a little bit, but I bet it's not as much latency as like from your own internet connection to wherever
The latency will more than be compensated by the amazing Xbox controller I will be using to play.
I would love to hear your
Nice.
feedback on the way that xCloud works for you, Dale, since you're the only one that hasn't really tried streaming games.
I'll check it out.
Now that you have it. Anyway, my
Yeah.
game, number 3 game of the year, Halo Infinite. I just, it surprised me on how well it was put together. The campaign was great. The multiplayer was fun as whatever. I'm not a Halo guy. I don't really care about the lore, but something about running around on that Halo ring and doing the thing was fun. It was great. It felt good, and the combat was good. And for that reason, looking at my entire list of games that I played this year, which, by the way, there were 18 2021 games that I played in 2021. And this game
not
was
bad.
This game was my number 3. So Halo Infinite, number 3 game byte of mine. There you go.
No, not bad.
Next on the list, we have Jeremy. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, so my number 3 game of the year is Psychonauts 2. And I was really impressed by Psychonauts 2 because it was every bit the proper and well-conceived sequel to the original game. It the character depictions were awesome. The comedy was there. The little mind worlds that you go into, super creative and just a lot of really delightful stuff. Music is awesome. But it was just it was not a disappointment in terms of being a sequel to the original game. And they had, years to put it together, and
which is actually kind of surprising, right? Like, from my perspective.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I'm thinking.
They shouldn't have been able to make this game good.
Something was going to go wrong. Something was going to go wrong.
How many of the same people on the development team do you think?
Most of them. I mean, it's still Double Fine. It's still Tim Schafer at the helm.
It's been so long. It's like 15 years or something, right?
I would imagine that Tim Schafer probably has a crew of dudes that are like his
ghosts,
right?
Yeah,
His
and they as a company really try and make it like a good creative place where they can kind of follow their passions and things like that. So I think they have a lot of people who stay, and it's not all the same people, but they did bring in, from what I understand, some of the original character artists to at least get kind of the concepts down.
Cool.
And just in general, I just found myself not being brokenhearted by it, and so it was just delightful. So it was like happy. It was like everything that I really wanted it to be. There are some kind of technical things with it. I mean, just like minor little things, but you get to learn a lot more. Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. But there, you get to learn a lot more about some of the characters that are in there. So there's like kind of like the cool lore component to it. And it's kind of like coming back to a warm psychic hug after 10 years or whatever it's been.
It's been longer than that.
It's whatever it is. I mean,
it's original, right?
Majesco 2006 or something.
PlayStation 2. Was it a PlayStation game?
It was
a
PlayStation 2 game. No, it was in PlayStation 1. It was a PlayStation 2 game.
Right.
Majesco published it, and where are they now?
At the top, maybe.
Yeah.
Of the pile of
they've rebranded.
Were they the ones who the stock ticker was cool? Was that them?
I think that's right.
I want to say that was them.
Yeah.
Somebody
check out
Majesco?
on the stock market.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know what more I can say about it. It actually had like a weird number of celebrity voices as well. Elijah Wood was in it. Jack Black is in it and plays.
They're not doing anything these days.
Really fun character. And
living off of royalties from Lord of the Rings, bud. That's what.
Yeah, no doubt.
Still.
Now, they're now having 20th anniversary.
I love Jack Black as Gandalf.
Jack Black. I thought he was born there.
He's got that beard now too. Like he's grown out like this big like axe blade beard. That's really cool.
He says end his axe and he pulls out a guitar, right, Jeremy?
Yes. Tenacious D is actually going to be here in June, and I'd probably going to be out of the country, but
dude, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it is fun. So they'll be here in Salt Lake City in June. So number 3, Psychonauts. It just kind of did everything I wanted it to do and didn't disappoint. And it didn't make my number 2 or my number 1 though. So something to say.
Interesting.
Well, for my own number 3, I have to give it to Mass Effect Legendary Edition, just because I thought I enjoyed going back and playing as much of the Mass Effect series as I did. Yeah, it was good. It was great. It was number 3 of the 2021 games that I've played this year.
Was this number 3 and not 1 because it didn't have Andromeda?
Yeah, if it had Andromeda, it would easily be number 1.
So do you recommend
part
this
of the trilogy? It's not part of the trilogy.
Do you recommend? I mean, so being that this is your number 3 game, would you recommend that people who are very familiar with Mass Effect? I mean, is this a good opportunity for them to go back and replay it, or is this something?
Yes, yeah, Jeremy. I mean, absolutely. I think everybody who is familiar with Mass Effect would kind of know for themselves if it was time to go back and hang out with the crew again, right? But in fact, I remember recommending to you that you jump into the series with this newer version. So yeah, I mean, I think this is the definitive way to play these games now, especially that I believe all of the DLC is now included. I think they even found a way to include that initial Mass Effect 1 DLC that had been missing, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh wow.
So yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's too hard to go back and choose between romancing Garrus or romancing Rex. How do you do it?
Yeah. Well,
Rex
you
isn't
flip a
a
coin.
romance option.
Flip a coin.
In my game, he is.
I tried a little bit of this, and I think it's going to be a wait for Game Pass to get it officially, or EA Play through Game Pass.
Wow.
And then I will play through it again, because I did play a little bit of it, and yeah, it's fantastic as far as
and they've improved Mass Effect 1 as well. So
Yes.
it no longer uses the original combat system that it used. They now have sort of brought it up to the level that 2 and 3 were at, which were better. So yeah, I mean, it's good.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, I hate to break the trend of
awesome
our number
games.
of our number 3s being like sequels or
Being like cool,
bringing back
games.
older kind of style games to
Stock
the
ticker
future. So I'm just gonna keep on with it. And my number 3 was Stronghold Warlords. I am like an unabashed fanboy of the Stronghold series. Yeah, all of them. I love all of those games, even the not so great one, the Stronghold Legends. But Stronghold Warlords was really great, and it didn't try to do anything too different. It had some new systems added. It had a whole new theme. Of course, it was Asian, Eastern themed. Had some fun stories to go along with that, but it was just a Stronghold game, and it wasn't afraid to be that. And I really appreciate that, because I loved the game. So you hate for them to try to do something too different when all you want more is just more, right? So
more Stronghold.
Stronghold Warlords, which I loved the heck out of.
Hold me stronger.
You still got to build
Stronghold.
castles. You still got to like have your troops up on the walls and siege engines. And it's like, am I gonna win or not? And yeah, it's good stuff, man. You're building up all the little, I gotta get this so I can make this, and then that does this, and it's like, it's good. I love those types of games. It's like city builders, but military defense games.
Yeah, so it's like a 4X, but also it has like the Total War kind of element to it, right? Like you can
No, it has like pretty set missions, right? You start a mission and you play through it. It has some different modes, but really what it is it's more of like an anno game. You want to build up your economy so that you have bows to make archers or stone to make walls. But
right,
so it's kind of a balance. And it had some unique systems with the warlords. The titular warlords added in, which was one of my favorite features, very similar to a feature in Stronghold 2, which I loved, with their fiefs. So it kind of brought those back, but in a really cool way. So really great stuff. Not even my favorite like era of medieval history, but in terms of the
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It was just such a cool game and something different. And they really played with the flavor. Like it had some like Vietnamese medieval era, it had Japanese, it had like the Mongolian, like the Khans, like such cool like just breadth to it, and there's so much to poke at and explore. So yeah, Stronghold Warlords is my number 3. Really good.
Huh. Well, all right, moving right along, I guess. Wow, we're cruising through it.
Burning right through it.
Yeah,
done by midnight, easy. My number 2 game of the year is a game that I did play on the PS5. I'm giving it to Resident Evil Village. And Resident Evil Village is the sequel to the best VR game out, Resident Evil 7. Despite not being in VR, it's still an amazing game. It did something pretty unique with the Resident Evil formula, where it basically took a lot of different Resident Evil styles of gameplay and horror themes and combined them into one single game, which kind of made you feel like you were playing these little vignettes, these 4 different vignettes in these different areas and stuff like that. The characters that they added to the game, including the Lady Dimitrescu and some of the other scenarios, the dollhouse place and all those things. Like it was just a well-paced game and spooky and creepy and scary from start to finish. And I thought it was fantastic. I'm a pretty, I would say I'm an average Resident Evil fan when it comes to the genre in general. Resident Evil 7 though is the most amazing game ever.
Yeah.
In VR especially, and this game being the follow-up to that, I think they did an excellent job.
That's what I was going to ask you about, because I sort of wondered, like, it doesn't have that VR hook, and so kind of coming back from that seems like it would be a little bit of a letdown. And
yeah, I mean, honestly, I would have loved to have played this game in VR. It would have been great in VR. And again, it did maintain the first person aspect, right? That they had. So it is kind of confusing, unless they just didn't feel like it made that big of a dent financially for them to do it in VR. And so while I would have loved to have played it in VR, it still was fantastic. I think if I would have played Resident Evil 7 outside of VR, I think I would have felt the same way about it, as it being a great game. So I still think Resident Evil 7 is also fantastic. Just VR added that next level. I believe Resident Evil 7 was my game of the year that year it came out, if I recall. And this game, despite not having that hook, was still,
so where do you think this felt? Like, I'm sort of curious to hear, and I got to be honest, I didn't really look to see what other people were doing for their game of the year picks, but I was sort of wondering, do you think this game has longevity as far as like, it's going to be one of the all-time Resident Evil games? I mean, where would you put this in terms of, where would you rank this in the Resident Evil?
I think Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 7, and Village are the best Resident Evil games there are.
1, 4,
I think
7.
I think 2's fine, 3's fine, Code Veronica was fine, 5 and 6 were. I never finished 5 and 6.
5 is fine.
I played a bit of 5, never played 6. I played some Revelations. But 4 was obviously, there's a reason why 4 is remade every 10 minutes, right? And that actually did come out in VR this year, which I actually haven't played yet. And just because I watched videos on it and it just didn't, I don't know, it didn't hook me. Like,
I mean, it's Resident Evil 4, so you probably already played it at least a couple times.
It exactly. I played Resident Evil 4 3 times, I think, all the way through. So yeah, I think it is one of the greats. I think it's one of the good ones, and I think it's the strength of, they really focus on. Well, Resident Evil 7 focused on the family members, right? And so you had like the brother and the dad and the grandma and the mom and these different characters that you were kind of focused on, and they did the same thing in this game, despite them not being directly related. It was still a theme of like, here's this character, and we're going to develop out this character that is going to be the bad guy of this section of the game, right? And then they focused on the next one, and they all had very distinct personalities, distinct levels, and it made Resident Evil 8 just be just a fantastic game from start to finish. I think I loved every minute of it. I never felt like I was bored. Didn't feel like it was just kind of dragging on. I never found parts that were too complex or difficult. Like, the pacing was great. The puzzle solving was, what you would expect from a Resident Evil game, which is fine, right?
That's really good too, because I find that for me, that's a big roadblock for playing games these days. Like, I haven't really sat down and thought about it, but it seems like stuff that used to hold my attention, I really need something to be well paced like that these days.
I'm the same way. If I come across something that I just don't understand, I will immediately just go look up something, right? Like,
and there are even games that are like good games, like games that I think are fine and good, like actually good, but sometimes not every game has that thing that kind of pulls you and keeps a real good pace.
Yeah.
and wants to, you know.
And I
see
think
through
the
to
reason
end.
why this game does that is because of those very four distinct areas that are very different in feel. Like one is like you have Lady Dimitrescu. Like she's only in the first quarter of the game or first 20% of the game.
Yeah.
And she's
I
stalking
thought
you
she was
around
like the only
Mr.
character in the
X.
whole thing.
Right. That's what they wanted you to think, right? So she stalks you around for like the first quarter of the game. But after that, you go to another section, which is completely different. The feel and the tone and I mean, there's a section of the game where you just don't have any weapons, and it's just very psychological horror more than it is, you know, action jump scare horror or fighting.
Yeah.
There's no combat in the section, so they do a good job of kind of, and I think that's what makes this one strong is the way that they mixed up the gameplay across the game and just kind of changed it up as they went. So
yeah,
very good game. I'm interested to see where they go with it next because they've, you know, defined this character. And we'll see where they take it. So anyway, that's my number 2 game of the year, Resident Evil Village. Everyone should give it a shot. It's probably pretty cheap at this point.
nice.
I would imagine.
Cool.
Well, kind of springboarding off of your idea about pacing and stuff like that, my number 2 game is one that I actually did not talk about this year. And this happens sometimes. Like, I'm not going to apologize for it. Yeah, where we didn't actually feature it. And part of the reason for that is
this happened every year, by the way.
It's fine.
Only
it's fine.
to Jeremy.
Only to me.
Yes.
There's just a lot to talk about. But and this, I didn't play it until actually like holiday break, right? So we were off and that, but
Well, that's the reason why we didn't have a podcast last week.
yeah. So I have
Convenient
been
excuse.
playing Returnal on the PlayStation 5.
This is on my
And
short list, by the way. Of games
So
I'll play.
this game, and I don't think anybody, LeGrand, you didn't talk about that this year, did you?
I didn't. I haven't played it, and it's like I said, it's a game that I wanted, but I didn't want to spend $70 on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but when they like, it's like one of those like $30 games for me. If I
Yeah.
can find it for $30, that's when I snag this one for sure.
So a couple things about it. First of all, it's by Housemarque, who has heretofore only really done like straight up arcade type games. Super Stardust. What was the one on the PlayStation 4, the launch game for the PS4, where you save the last humans, whatever it was, whatever that.
I know what
game
you're
was.
talking about. Defender.
Yeah, exactly.
PS4 edition.
Yeah. And you know, then they've done some other things, but they've all typically been like, you know, you're just going to be shooting bullets and dodging bullets and stuff. And this is the first game that they've done where it's like, nope, this is actually, I would say that this game is a little bit like a cross between like Dark Souls and like Metroid Prime and like, I don't know what, something kind of like that. And it has this idea of just kind of playing over and over again. So there have been a lot of rogue-like sorts of games, and this kind of follows along that idea. But it builds in like a lot of like Alien style, like Ridley Scott type movies. It looks like that, it feels like that, and it does a lot of stuff mechanically really well. But the main thing that really strikes me about it is that for the first time in kind of a long time, I mean, there is something about roguelike games in general that'll sort of pull you back in. And they basically work completely on the loop, of this is going to be the time I do it. Going all the way back. I'm trying to think of the first game that like really, really addicted me. And I want to say it's like FTL or something like that, where every time you play, you feel like you got a shot and this is it. Like, this is going to be the one.
This is the run.
Yeah, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. And then something just snaps and goes south and like, and now that's it. That wasn't the one. Returnal is funny though, because very often I feel like I am really going to struggle. Like something went wrong right from the beginning. It uses a lot of risk reward systems. There are, in terms of the path that you take through the game, it clearly labels what are the side routes that you can take, and you can decide that you're going to go that way or not, and that's a risk and reward because there's always going to be something good back there, but you could totally die straying from the critical path. But you also got to beef yourself up for boss fights and stuff. There are also a number of there's this idea of parasites too, where the parasites are little things that you may randomly find around the game where you can choose to take anything or not. But the idea of Returnal is that any given thing that you take is going to harm you and hurt you, and there's no in between. It's not like maybe this
like
is
your
help
little roguelike upgrades, I guess.
Yeah, all of that stuff. And so
why
everything
does
you
that
do
make
is
this
gonna be a
game
trade-off.
awesome compared to like another
I think
roguelike.
I think because it's a game where under other circumstances I would feel really discouraged and be like, oh no, this is not going to be good for me. But Housemarque has done a really good job of mixing in negative traits and positive traits so that all the time going into it. Like let me just give you an example. When you have an opportunity to get a parasite, like it's going to do stuff like lower your health by 30%, but also you're going to have a chance to get better guns. I never think I'm always getting the parasite. Like I'm always doing it. And it's gonna hurt me every single time. But I just found myself thinking about that. Like I'm always getting this. Like I'm never like, no, that's too, this is just too far. Like I'm always gonna get it because it mixes in something that's good enough that feels moment to moment like it's gonna help me, that I will deal with the negative drawbacks. And I think that characterizes the game in general. And I just don't feel like a lot of games do that. A lot of the time when I'm playing something like that, I've got to get the best. You
got to get it the best.
You got to get the best.
Yep.
Or look
Hades,
really good. Either way.
Hades does a pretty good job. But the thing about Hades is it gives you like a ton of variety. So there are things that are definitely going to be sort of against you in that. But in Returnal, everything is against you, but also for you, I guess. I'm not quite sure how to put it another way. And what it does to me is it means that I'm never playing and feeling like, oh, this is not going well. Or if I am like, hey, that's fine because like there's always an opportunity for something to get better. And the upshot of it is that when the game starts you back at the beginning, as it will do, I always am like ready to go again. Whether or not it's going to be the run, I'm always going to have a fair shot at it because something is going to hurt me and it's going to help me. And somehow this studio Housemarque that has only ever done like power up getting spaceship flying, Twitch kind of game, like they somehow nailed, and they did some really elegant things also with doing story in this as well, where you are definitely going to die, but they sort of fold in the new critical path upgrades, the permanent things that stay with you and tell you a story as they're doing it. And it's also like one of the very few next gen, like current gen experiences that you're going to get on the PlayStation 5 as well. And I think that counted in its favor as well. It's just by virtue of the fact that there are so few things that are natively PlayStation 5 software that are really worth playing. Everybody's waiting for Horizon Zero Dawn next year. Everybody's waiting for God of War next year. But this is an authentic current gen experience that you can get. And it's, current gen pricing, but it has been on sale. So it's been, $50 instead of $70.
You can pick it up around 40 on eBay.
Yeah. So you can get it. But I would say it does enough things well that I would say Housemarque probably has earned the money that it costs you to play this game. Like I think that's probably the best thing I can say about it. All and right. It springboarded over something like Psychonauts 2, which I was highly anticipating. Like I said, didn't do anything wrong, but it has
snuck in the last hour.
It kind of did, like 11th hour, and it kind of does that thing like you were talking about with Resident Evil. It just keeps me engaged in a way that I want to play one more round, which is not something that all games have done to me this year, even the good ones. That's it. Returnal, my number 2.
Nice.
All right. For my number 2, this was very, very nearly my number 1. But I decided to go ahead and give that nod to something else. But for number 2, I wanted to highlight Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sector. Nice. This being the turn-based tactical game of sort of like squad level battlefield combat, where you have up to about 20 units on a side, and you're taking into account things like the terrain and the line of sight of the stuff that's on the battlefield. So you're like, making your squads go around like big reactors and smokestacks and like shipping crates or whatever to shoot the enemy, or to not be seen by the enemy maybe. I just thought it was really good. Like all the way through. I finished this game actually. I beat the 20 missions or whatever it was in the campaign, and had a great time doing it because it was I don't know. I don't do mission-based, turn-based games have pacing? I don't know if they have pacing, but it felt like it was paced well. And as you go along, you unlock new units like strategy games do, right? And then toward the maybe halfway point or 3/4 in, you start to feature some units from another faction, and and it's getting support too. They're going to be adding another race, I think, in the coming months. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out that. And yeah, I just had a real good time with it. It's a very solid turn-based tactical. Space Marines fighting Tyranids is the campaign. In the skirmish mode, you can play as the Tyranids. You can do multiplayer online battles if you want. And the race that they're adding pretty soon. So in addition to the Space Marines in the campaign, you also get to control the Sisters of Battle, they're basically just like women Space Marines. There's not all that much difference in their unit choices. But they are going to be adding the Necrons pretty soon, which are the like
Interesting choice.
Terminator-esque, sort of like also zombie skeleton-esque robot,
like undead robots.
Zombies.
Yeah. There's a whole story of why they're like undead robots, but that's basically what they are. And so yeah, pretty cool game. Warhammer 40K Battle Sector.
Yeah, something interesting. This game actually came to Game Pass.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass.
First week of December it showed up. So if you do want to check it out, it's actually a quick install. It's only about 6 or 7 gigs.
And that's only on PC, right? Like they don't have this adapted for
PC Game Pass.
No, it's on console now.
Is it on console Game Pass as well?
Yeah. It came out on Xboxes maybe only. I'm not sure.
Oh, really? That's cool. Can you?
I would try that. I would jump into that. I'd try it out.
It's cool.
It looks like a very kind of faithful kind of recreation, so to speak, of the experience. It looks great. Yeah.
It's very faithful to the Warhammer, to the 40K units that they include, and it's also the first game I know of to actually have Primaris Space Marines, which were
the newer kind of
Yeah, they were introduced to the tabletop game. I think it was like in 2017 now, so it's been a while. Yeah. But this is the first video game to actually include them, and they were awesome.
It does stream. It looks like on console, on xCloud as well. So a quick try if you want to just give it a shot, which I think I might do.
That's perfect. That's exactly what Game Pass does for.
That's what Game Pass is for games that don't require.
Oh, and the other thing is that it's not super hard either. It's not like one of those games where you're gonna get to like the third mission and it's like, this is impossible. How can you do this? It's like maybe that's what I meant when I referred to the pacing. It's just like it kind of ramps up a little bit. Yeah, accessible. Yeah. I mean, toward the end I had to restart missions a few times, but like not to where it was frustrating.
Yeah. Right. And I just want to say, I thought, Jeremy, you were changing your overlay for each game. I'm
trying to. I mean, this is the closest I could get to Warhammer as an orc.
It's a joke. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, they're not in Battle Sector. They're also not in my number 2, which actually is quite a bit of a departure from most games. I did actually talk about it on the stream, though. Book of Travels is my number 2. So this is a really funny little game. They call it a tiny multiplayer online game. And so as you play, you just run into people. It was like a Kickstarter. It's got this, like if you're watching, there's like beautiful painterly look. It's just a very chill and like relaxed game. And it has that kind of aesthetic to it. Like Dark Souls players will understand what I'm saying when I say like the narrative is told in the world. You know what I mean? So like item descriptions, the way things look. You don't have like a quest log. You just talk to people and they tell you about things and you go investigate them. There's this whole like almost like magic system that if you didn't pay attention to what someone told you and go talk to the person they mentioned can teach you how to read it, you don't know it. You just never learn it. So it's really cool stuff. And what's really interesting is when I was playing this, I learned that system eventually, and suddenly things that were already in the world that I had already seen and experienced had like a new meaning. So you're like, oh, I can go back to areas I've been in this very, again, beautiful, casual little game, and kind of have see it through a new perspective, through a new lens. Really neat little game. There's no money, so it's like all about bartering or what you can collect, and you just it really embraces.
I don't think I realized that when you talked about it before. There's no money, so everything is not based on just like doing general like beating up dudes. You've got to have the stuff that somebody wants in order to do things.
Yeah, and you find yourself like collecting like, I don't know, like plants and like weird rocks and fish and fishing and like little things and be like, oh, I can trade this in for this. Or I know this one merchant was talking to me back in this other town. And so spend all this time traveling. And it just has that way, because the whole game is built around it, of making you feel like there aren't wrong choices. You just get to experience this game, and it is going to be what it is based on what you do. And that's okay. Like, I love games that do that. Not enough games. So many games focus on like the IO failure success. But this one, there's no failure, there's no success. It's just what it is. It's just an experience you get to go have. Sometimes you run into people, sometimes you don't, but the communication system's kind of weird anyway. So
it sounds a lot like real life, except for bartering for fishes and rocks. Like, I wish we could get that.
I can't believe you don't barter for stuff with fishes and rocks. But anyway, my number 2 this year is Book of Travels. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. We are down to the number 1, the best of the best.
Game of the year.
Okay, sorry, not sorry. On this
He's not sorry.
My number 1 game is going to Final Fantasy 14, Endwalker.
Oh, he got us.
And the only reason why I'm saying Endwalker is to allow it to sneak in.
To make it legit.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Endwalker is fantastic. It's probably among all of the expansions and the base Realm Reborn for Final Fantasy, Endwalker is probably my favorite, or at least, or if not my second favorite for sure of all of those games. But in general, Final Fantasy this year dominated my gaming life. Like I have had it, I've played it weekly since March. Like I haven't stopped since I subscribed. I've been playing this game consistently without stopping. And I have put over 600 hours into this game this year alone, which is insane. So what that means is there could have been a lot more games on my list had I not played Final Fantasy 14. But Final Fantasy 14 is just so damn good that that's all I wanted to play. And it's such an interesting way that Final Fantasy 14, and not to belabor this or talk any more about it than I already have, because I have talked about this plenty, but the way that Final Fantasy 14 is designed is if you're a solo guy who just likes Final Fantasy 14 stories, you can play through Final Fantasy 14 and enjoy the story and never engage with anybody or any of the other systems that exist, and play through the story campaign. And by the way, the story is fantastic. Endwalker, I'm about probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the story campaign, and it's shaping up to be awesome. They do things and take you places where I was not expecting. And the characters that you meet, I was not expecting to meet, and the things that you do and the revelations that exist, as Endwalker is the culmination of the storytelling that began with Realm Reborn, or even began with the original base game before they made Realm Reborn. This Endwalker is basically tidying up that whole thing, and they kind of did so. And then that was only half of the game, and then it kept going, and then there's more stuff that they're still doing. And so I plan on. I was hoping to finish it over the break, but I haven't had as much time as I wanted to play the game. But I am making my way through it. But just the fact that I couldn't go. There's no way that this game could be my number 1 game this year, just because of the sheer amount of time that I put into it, and just how polished and solid that Endwalker is, and the new content and the new areas and the new storylines and the new characters and the new jobs that they added are just so well done. And it feels, the thing with like Final Fantasy versus like a World of Warcraft is World of Warcraft has open betas and beta periods that happen a year in advance, and everything is data mined out, and everyone knows exactly what's going to happen in like a World of Warcraft expansion before it even releases. Like, what the raids are, what the dungeons are, what the story arcs are. And Final Fantasy 14, they don't do that. They don't have any beta periods. Like, nobody knows about the game or the story or anything about it until the game actually comes out. So it was cool to kind of be a part of that experience with this game, where it didn't feel like a WoW expansion. It didn't feel like another MMO expansion. It felt like, everyone was kind of doing it at the same time. It's like a brand new game where nobody knew anything. Like, you saw the trailer, you knew the 2 new jobs, And that was basically it. So being able to experience that, enjoy the memes. You know,
I mean, I
chat with
still
my
feel that way.
people
Like,
about it.
honestly, I'm not really sure what to make of Endwalker. You know, like, is it? I don't know. I mean, what do you say about it? You know, that with Stormbringer, it's like, oh, there's karate going on, and with other,
and the thing with Final Fantasy is since the story is such a hardcore part of the game, despite Heaven's Ward being 8 years old at this point, like Final Fantasy 14 players will not spoil that for anyone. Like, they're not going to talk about the game because the storyline is such a crucial part of the game, and it's so good that even despite the game being 8 years old, anyone who's getting into Final Fantasy 14 is going to play through all of that stuff. And they would never want to spoil that for anybody. And that's kind of the feeling of the community. The community's fantastic in this game. And they don't, I've had none of Endwalker spoiled for me, and the game has been out. And I had none of any of the other expansions spoiled for me at all. Like, despite the game being 10 years old, like that, it hasn't happened.
Yeah, I still haven't. Like, I've actually been really impressed by that.
It's crazy, right?
Same thing. Yeah.
Like, I know what happens in World of Warcraft.
I'm still holding out hope that I'll go and play those first expansions after the base game. Like, I think just in terms of years, I've been playing this farther back than anybody here, and I'm still like the first.
I picked up Realm Reborn
for years
2 months after it came out.
Only the free
my first
2 week
weekends a long time ago.
For like 2 years.
And that's the best way to do it. I still contend.
Yeah, well,
not because of the game, just because of MMOs. That's just like, you know.
So the thing I'm interested in, this is the rest I'll say about this game, is that I'm interested to see how the pacing goes once I do hit. You know, when I got to the end game of Shadowbringers, which was the previous expansion, everything was out for it. Like, all the storylines, all the raids, all the dungeons, all the events. It was all done and completed. And everyone in the game was just waiting for Endwalker to come out. So I'm interested to hit the end game of this and kind of feel how the patches rollout cycle goes, and if it can, keep continue to keep my interest as it has been. So that is going to be the true test of, will Final Fantasy 14 sustain me through the whole patch cycle to the next expansion. The crazy part is that Yoshi P has come out and said, hey, if you don't want to play our game, that's fine. There's lots of stuff to play. Just, unsubscribe and come back when there's something you want to do. Like, it's such a weird thing where they just the feel of the developers, the communication with them, and the way that they talk to people, like, oh, there were server problems when the launch happened because there were so many people that wanted to play Endwalker. And, oh, by the way, we're going to detail you out all of the technical reasons why this is happening and what we're doing to fix it, and be completely transparent about it. And that's something you just don't see. Like, and I think that type of stuff, and just the way that the developers interface with the community, the way that the community interfaces with themselves, and then the game itself, like, there's no way that this game couldn't be my #1 game. Now, next year, when there is no expansion coming out, it won't be able to sneak in there. But this year, and quite honestly, the expansions are basically another full game. Like, I'm going to spend 100 hours playing through the story quests of this thing,
And I just want to comment on one thing that you said. Like, part of the experience is actually the community. Part of the experience is actually the communication from the developers. I mean, it's not just a game that has come out and then, you have the experience with it and it's done. I mean, as a living game, that's one of the things that this kind of has that the other games that we've all talked about, they don't really take that stuff into account. So it is kind of interesting that that's something to take into consideration in the experience of the game, and whether it's one of your favorite games of the year, and B, that the company has actually nailed it, or the community or whatever, just like the peripheral stuff surrounding the game has been really positive and really edifying. So I think that's notable.
Yeah, the only downside, I guess, and Dale can attest to this, is the MOG station, and trying to resubscribe to this damn game is a pain in the ass. But
yeah,
they've never been good at the back end. Like, that back end stuff.
And Final Fantasy 11 was just as bad, quite honestly. This seems to be like a carryover. Yeah, this is like a carryover. Like, hey, we made Final Fantasy 11 launcher better, but it's still not great.
We upgraded it. It just has a new banner.
They've improved it. It's still not where you'd want it to be.
The font sizes.
Yeah. I will tell you, for Endwalker, they allowed you to make your launcher have a dark background instead of a light background. So they've been improving it with every
little steps, small.
That's really what pushed it over the edge to my #1. Anyway, my #1 game of the year, and if you listen to the podcast, it's all no surprise here at all. Final Fantasy 14 Endwalker, specifically, since it is the game that came out this year.
Excellent.
Is my #1 game of the year.
Excellent. My number one game of 2021 is a little bit surprising to me, but also totally credible.
Don't worry, it's surprising to us too.
Forza Horizon 5 is my number one game of 2021 , and part of it.
I played this today, by the way.
So part of it, and I think I mentioned this when we talked about it on the podcast. Yeah, Game Pass, right?
Game
like
Pass.
I didn't actually have to go out and buy this thing, and I have access to it.
I wouldn't have bought it had it.
I don't think I would have either. Like
I wouldn't have bought it if it wasn't on Game Pass. There's no way.
The Forza series in general, I have only played when it's been offered for free from Microsoft. It's like car games, right? Car games are kind of like, okay, like I'll play a car game. It's cool. Like I've played Gran Turismo and whatever. But Forza, I think I mentioned when we featured it, it really feels like the successor to Burnout Paradise to me. And I know that Forza 4 has done some stuff and whatever, but this also I've been able to play with my kids this year, and they liked Forza 4 and they've kind of played it on their own. But this is the first one where we all together have kind of been sitting on the couch and discovering the game, being totally over the top with this hypothetical festival thing. I know.
Which, by the way, is the worst part of the game.
I know you said that's not like a thing, but like, but the fact
that's what sets it apart from Burnout Paradise. And I don't want to criticize the game because I agree with you. It's fantastic, but Burnout Paradise had none of that bullshit. Yeah. And this game has the bullshit.
Well, here's the thing that it does.
Outside of that, though, this game is
it gives you sort of an excuse to be over the top with like the introduction to this is like the craziest stupid thing where they just put you in one car and put you in another car. They paraglide out dudes on motorcycles, and then they get into wingsuits and stuff
ridiculous.
Like that. I mean, it just gives you a backdrop that you can do all of that stuff. And then the terrain of Mexico, like the setting for it, I found really refreshing and cool. Clearly the way that it looks, the music, they did like a whole lot of like
the music is great in it.
The music is awesome. It just all comes together and just really, really hit for me this year. And the fact that my teenage children are all about it too, and like I could just sit with them and we can all veg out together and just drive to some intersection and start some kind of race and go somewhere and do something that's fun and challenging. And just like Burnout did, if you don't do well, who cares? Go to another intersection, start another event, go play it, and just have fun just rolling around. My kids will just like launch themselves through the landscape. Like they don't even use the roads. They'll just like barrel over trees and smash themselves on rocks. And who cares, right? Like it's all reward all the time, this game. And
I actually did a thing today where I ran a really long HDMI cable from my PC. I have a TV here in my office, like a 65-inch TV probably sitting here in my office. And I ran a cable from my PC to my TV so I could get really close. And I always drive with like the in the dash view. Like I drive inside the cockpit.
Yeah.
That's how I play racing games.
I agree.
And so I would like scoot right up close to the TV, and I zoomed all in. I had my headphones on. I cranked up the sound, and I played Forza Horizon.
The only thing that would make it better is if they did like Gran Turismo and did it in VR. I mean, Xbox doesn't have a VR thing. But like Gran Turismo in VR is next level.
Like Drive Club VR was amazing.
Drive Club VR, yeah, absolutely, because you're just in the cockpit. You can drive anywhere. It doesn't make you motion sick because you're surrounded by this cockpit, and you can look around the turn. You can see what's coming. You can get an idea of how far away it is. But this doesn't have that, so whatever. Yeah. But it has everything else, and even like the dumb little game modes, like the almost like a Rocket League style thing. I mean, they have capture the flag modes, they have zombie infection modes, all with cars. And I think the thing that does kind of get a little bit old is when you have to meet all of the festival people. Like when it's like, oh, here's Isabella, and she's going to show you how it is to really ride. Yeah, like that. So, but I can forgive it that because you only have to deal with that when you unlock a new area, and other than that, you do what you want, and it's.
You're gonna go ride with Hector, and he's gonna take you around.
Here's Hector.
The Mexican countryside.
That's right. We're going to take some photos, essay. It's going to be great. No, actually, that's fine. We don't have to do that. But anyhow, but other than that,
do you think the game would be as good without that? Yeah, I think it would be just as good.
I think without that stuff. But I really like. I will say that I have a little bit of a personal bias because one of the things that I found really great about games like MotorStorm was the backdrop of like this gearhead. You know, this is a little bit more like the Ubisoft club, like, oh, these are like the cool influencers, man, and we're gonna, you know, whatever. So that's a little less, but I liked the backdrop of the fact that it was like, we're gonna have this fictional festival. It's sort of like it could be happening, and we're also gonna just like fly a plane around and drop your opponents in cars like out. We're gonna parachute them out. And you know, other than that, like you would not see that in Gran Turismo.
I would imagine that once you get to the end of the story, the adventure mode or whatever, and once the game is just open to you, like that's when this game would take off for me even more, right? Like we don't have to deal with that every once in a while.
Yeah,
because I actually had to do one of those today. It's like, hey, go over and do the thing, and I established some jungle, you know, club with
the jungle base. Yep, exactly.
The jungle base
like,
with the stage and the nerds dancing.
But on the way there, like the storm that you ride through, that's awesome, and the lightning strikes that are coming down, like that's cool.
This is the one where I was driving through the river with a Jeep. Is the one that I did.
Yeah. So
jumping off the airplanes.
It gives you an opportunity to have in a car racing game like set piece moments that you normally don't get if you're just loading them from a menu or just roaming around the countryside. And I feel like that does work with that mostly. So.
And the licensed cars, I think, also add a ton to this.
Yeah, and the only thing is that I still wish that somebody would be able to get over that whole like the one thing that Burnout Paradise still does, and I realize they're all like fake made up cars, is no car game ever crashed you like Burnout Paradise did.
The damage model was.
It was awesome, and it's been.
It wasn't realistic. It was just good.
It's been 12, 13 years since we've done that. We should have that problem solved. Like I would generally, I don't know, weigh in on this, guys, because let me try this out. I would rather have made up cars that are sort of like the off-brand Mustang or whatever than the licensed Fords and Chevys and not be able to crash them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. So anyhow, so that is my number one game of 2021. I'm also shocked, but you know, I have no regrets. Forza Horizon 5, Game of the Year, 2020.
Nice. Awesome.
Well, I'll make this short and sweet. My number one game of the year was Valheim. This is the Norse survival sim.
Yeah.
And this was the first and only survival sim that really clicked with me. And I just thought it was great. It has a great look to it. It's a great game loop, you know, as many people are familiar with, and you know, from the myriad of games in this genre. But yeah, this one just it just really did it for me. I guess the locale with the like really verdant like forest stuff and the wildlife that you can hunt and skin, and then you know you build your hut. I don't know, your longhouse. I don't know what it is. I guess it depends on what you build, right? And you can build your boats. You can get on your boats. You can get attacked by krakens. You can go to a far shore, get attacked by trolls. You can go into a what would be like a barrow, and you know, where it's like a tomb, and get attacked by skeletons and drop all your stuff and have to do a corpse run. It's great. Yeah, it's even had good music and everything. So,
and is this still in early? Because I know they're still doing a lot of development on this, right? Like it seems like they just added
early access still.
Is it still early access?
Yeah,
I was thinking.
But
I know they've had
a lot of
titled. They have titled updates, or at least they have one called, I think it was like Hearth and Home. But yeah, I guess it is still early access. It's
seems
one
like
of
they
those
plan
games.
on releasing it next year, but all of it's weird because these types of games, they come out and they feel feature complete, and then they just keep expanding on it.
They just keep getting bigger.
I mean, at
some point they call it 1.0, and
it doesn't really matter with this type of game.
Spoilers: 2 out of 3 of my games are early access this year. So,
interesting.
Well, you can't talk about them next year.
I don't plan to.
But yeah, Valheim rocks. It's a really cool game.
Nice.
So.
Well, I did spoil it. So yeah, I have 2 out of 3 are early access. My second early access actually just came out at the beginning of December. War Tales. So Shiro Games, same guys that made Northgard. But God, War Tales is. You ever play a game? I mean, I know you guys have. Like, you play a game and it's not like the most feature complete. It's not like there's this one certain thing that just feels so good, but like just every piece of it just is like in your head. You're like, yes, that's how I imagined it should be, or oh, that's how I wanted it to be, or like, oh, this feels right, this feels good. That is War Tales for me. And it took my number one. It is very early access. It has just one of its kind of campaigns, but from what's there, it's low fantasy, like mercenary RPG. You're trying to survive. You're trying to just scrape by. Every decision feels like there aren't right or wrong decisions. There's just wrong and other wrong decisions, or like I don't know, just decisions, right? And it's just got like the muted colors, the way people act in the game, and it kind of has like this kind of depressing, like kind of this like depressing, not as like, oh, I'm depressed, but like this, like it is like suppressing like the game, but then something good happens. Like you like, I got a windfall of food I can eat for another week, or oh wow, this really paid a lot, or I managed to pick the lock on that chest and got this like thing. It's like, it's like
This
so
kind of thing,
uplifting.
it goes back to like Oregon Trail, right? Like you just
Yeah.
expect bad things to happen
Right.
until something goes your way, and then those like middling moments become glorious because
It's like
you can keep playing.
early on, it like trains you to expect failure. And then when you don't find failure, it feels like a huge success, right? And that's kind of what this game's about. Like you just do bounties. You're just like being a group of mercenaries, literally trying to survive. Like there's a story to it. It's called War Tales, and there's like tales that
What's the combat like?
It's turn-based, but it's not like XCOM. Every like attack hits. So there's unlike XCOM where you have like a 95% hit chance and miss, and you're like you kind of expect the outcome. So it really comes down to placement and managing abilities. It kind of changes the combat to be I want to say it feels more like you're in control of it than just hoping for this thing to happen like you want it to happen. What's going to happen is going to happen. You know that. It's just a matter of, did I plan for it appropriately? So yeah, turn-based combat, but like really interesting interactions. Like one, it was like I went to this area, just wandering the map, and these like really high level people, or looked like really high level. They're in like really good armor, and there's a lot of them, so they look tough. We're like, we're gonna kill you if you don't go away right now. I was like, I'm out. I left. I was like, nope, I'm not even gonna fight this. And turns out like a few actions later, that same group is like, hey, come back, we want to talk to you. And so I go back, and a totally different interaction. I'm talking to them, we're like discussing things. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. Like what would happen if I had actually attacked them and I wouldn't have been successful, but had been successful and killed them. Like obviously that storyline wouldn't have played out. So just a lot to explore.
Games like this,
it just
that
feels
branch
right.
like that,
Yeah.
that have that level of. I mean, games have been trying to do this, like the Witcher games.
The Witcher, the original Witcher, is what it reminded me a lot of.
Right. And this game, and like games like Disco Elysium, where you have to wonder, like, what sort of like programming wizardry is kind of like driving that level of interaction, right? It's crazy.
It's good. It's really good. And it's still in early access, which to me just says there's a whole lot of goodness still to come. So it's a really great game. It took my number one slot.
Alpha, technically.
Fair enough. But it wasn't even close. I'm going to tell you the other games, it wasn't even close for War Tales that came out this year. And, it just came out in December. I haven't had a ton of time with it, but it is like, I was just like, it just felt right. Just like Disco Elysium, just like The Witcher 1, all those games that really nailed it for me. They just strummed all the right chords and made a beautiful song. So War Tales is my number one.
There's a lot of games out that I wish I would have played, or wish I would play, but I just suck at turn-based strategy games.
They're not my favorite either.
I suck at the combat. I always get my ass. Like, I've never beat XCOM because I just am bad at it, Like, I just don't know.
This
Can't
game,
handle 'em.
I feel like, is easier than XCOM Combat. Again, because if you're like, I can reach that guy and hit him with my spear stab, you know your spear stab will hit him. Like you have a little bit better capability to predict.
Is there
now-
anything like the Banner Saga?
Um,
Because the screenshots make it look a little bit like that.
yeah, so the combat is maybe a little similar, but the overworld outside of combat, not so
Oh
much.
yeah. No, yeah. I meant just the combat.
Yeah, but it's fun. There's a lot to play with. Obviously, it's a lot like Battle Brothers if you ever played that, but without the hit chance. That's kind of how the combat plays out to me. It's all about positioning. You want to get your melee guys up front. You know what? I had a guy that had like a big hammer, and I'm like, yes, get him in there, and you get him in there, and if you get the enemy and your guy like right next to each other, they're locked in combat. You can't take this guy and make him
To
attack
fight it
someone
out until
somewhere else.
someone dies.
Right. Or you take like swings of opportunity, whatever, if you leave. But what I didn't realize was my hammer guy swings a big hammer and it has like this arc of area effect. So I had two guys locked in combat with this one enemy. And I couldn't do anything but swing my hammer or pass my turn and hit my own guy. And so I'm like, you know what? I really need to kill this guy. I'm taking the hit. And so I hit my own guy. And it's like, I don't know if that was the right choice, because if I pass my turn, like that guy's going to take another swing at me and do damage. So, so yeah, I had a guy like on death's door, so to speak, because I hit him with a hammer and he was my own guy. So really interesting.
Maybe
game.
not the best
Ton of
choice,
fun.
but a choice that you can
It
make.
was a choice, one of two choices, and I chose it.
Well,
and
very
we all
good.
survived.
Those are the best games of 2021. That's
That's
it. Definitive.
Delete
Said
the
and
rest.
done.
Don't need
Yeah,
Closed book.
officially. What do we got? Final Fantasy Endwalker, for Forza Horizon 5, Valheim, and War Tales.
War Tales. What a
Very nice.
I want to try War
lineup again.
Tales.
It's
Looks
really
really
good.
It's on
really
my
good.
wish list, but yeah, cool.
Well, apart from that, there's always the runners-up that maybe didn't quite make the cut this year. So maybe we'll give a little bit of love to some of the ones that were in consideration, because the contention was. We were sharing our lists a little bit earlier, and there was a decent number of games that we played between among the four of us. So
There's quite a few good
maybe-
ones. Yeah.
little bit of shout out there. We'll just maybe go in the same order.
Yeah, I've got a couple honorable mentions. Of course, Forza Horizon 5 was an honorable mention for me, for the reasons we talked about. Also, I just wanted to highlight Back 4 Blood. I really felt like that game was exactly what I wanted out of that game, and playing that with friends was
It was back.
it was a delight. It was an absolute delight. I really liked Back 4 Blood, so that's a game that kind of honorable mention for me. Nothing that could have cracked my top three. Also, I wanted to highlight the Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade upgrade to the PlayStation 5 with the Yuffie DLC. That DLC, on top of being fantastic, the PS5 edition of Final Fantasy VII Remake was fantastic. Awesome. I played it at the high frame rate.
Was that
And
also this year, or the original of that, or was that last year?
No,
It's
that
just
was last
Intergrade
year.
That's this year. Okay.
Intergrade was this year. I just wanted to. The Yuffie DLC was very, very good. Kind of added story to a character in a scenario that you didn't know about. So in Final Fantasy VII Remake, like, you knew what was coming. You basically knew the story. But in the case of the Yuffie DLC, this is all brand new content, because you don't meet her until you get to Wutai in original Final Fantasy VII. So that was unique to this, as well as just the PS5 upgrade was really, really cool. So those are a couple honorable mentions I wanted to drop. The year was an interesting year in general, and I mean, Aliens Fireteam Elite, I guess, would be another one in the same vein of Back 4 Blood. You wouldn't think that they'd be able to make a good Aliens game, because they haven't since Alien versus Predator.
But there it is.
But there it is. Aliens Fireteam Elite was actually a very good one of those Left 4 Dead games. And yeah, I think that one deserves a look. And I believe it's also on Game Pass now. So there's no reason
Co-op
not to
shooters,
give it a look.
still good. That's the
Still
story
good.
there.
100%.
I'm actually going to mention also Back 4 Blood, not only because, as Legrand says, it's kind of what he wanted. I feel like Turtle Rock, I think was the name of the studio. I think they made the game that they wanted to as well. I think that the additions that they made, I think they hit just right. I think that the basic mechanic that we remember from Left 4 Dead is solid. They did a good job there. Some other games that I have talked about this year that I really wanted to. Haven, which I know nobody thinks about, nobody really cares about. The game that was on Game Pass, it's now off Game Pass, but it was a little indie game that I talked about last year on Steam Fest. And it just carried through this year, was released in like February, something like that. Also has one of my soundtracks of the year by EDM artist Danger. But I really like the idea that it is a space couple smooching out in their spaceship in outer space. I just love everything about it. It just really resonates with me. The Artful Escape is another one that I thought was really, I think it's a better experience to play than it is to watch or to just listen to the music or whatever. I do recommend that. I believe that is still on Game Pass, and that is another one that I think was just really well executed. And then I wanted to mention Mario Party Superstars, even though it's a combination of old Mario Party games from the Nintendo 64 era. I've actually had like 5 or 6 great occasions to play Mario Party Superstars with family and with friends, and it's just fun every time. And so I just thought I'd shout that one out as well, even though it's Mario Party. But whatever, it's fun. No regrets.
Well, again, quick and to the point. My honorable mention, just one here: Diablo 2 Resurrected, and I hope you know why that game is good enough to be an honorable mention.
It's crazy how good that game looks. That game looks like you remember it looking, and then you flip to like the old mode, and you're like,
oh, yeah. And you're like, what is this? What
is this garbage they put in my Diablo 2? Yeah. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a great game all these years later.
And they didn't change. It's just like a paint coat. Like they didn't like the mechanics are the same. They did not change anything.
Don't come to it looking for anything like, new content wise.
Don't think you're playing Diablo 3, Diablo 2, and storyline in Diablo 3. It ain't there. It is Diablo 2. That's really cool.
You play this because it's the quickest and easiest way to install Diablo 2 these days.
That's it. And it looks nice. It looks like you remember it. Not the way it actually looked.
Isn't that interesting the way that works?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I actually have kind of a long list. So I'm going to go through them very quickly. With just a brief explainer of why they hit the list. So The Ascent, that was a really pretty game and like had a super awesome vibe and whole story and plot. And I just wish the gameplay was a little better. It didn't quite make the list. Age of Empires 4, I expected this to be on my list, but it took me a month to get it to actually work. And that just killed it for me. You know what I mean? It's just it's not the game's
That's that
fault.
Xbox app on PC.
It is.
Right? Like
it's not necessarily the game's fault, but when by the time I got it up and running and I was playing it, I'm like, yeah, this feels good. This is like Age of Empires, but
you're already kind of
I'm over it. I'm annoyed by it. So this next game is in my list, and it's probably the most Jeremy I feel like I've been on the Gamebyties. Jurassic World Evolution 2. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have not played a second of this game. Not a second. But it came out this year. And I have one of my kids who has been just over the moon with this game. And it's like that weird like dad parenting thing.
Yes, that
like
totally
see
counts.
A kid like having so much fun with something, and you're like, I have to mention it.
Yes.
So Jurassic World Evolution 2. If you like dinosaurs, it's probably really cool. It's a great looking little game, but whatever. Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. I played a lot of this. I kind of fell out of it. I wish I hadn't, because now I'm like, I have no idea what I was doing, how I was building my character. It's one of those deep RPGs. But I wanted to mention it because I feel like it was a good year for old RPGs, right? Pathfinder, Solaris, Baldur's Gate 3 came out in early access. Really old RPGs, old RPG mechanics, like classic style of CRPGs. What a good year for them. But Path of the Righteous is the one I played, so I wanted to mention it. And it was good. It was really good. Age of Darkness Final Stand. It's We Were Billions, but medieval. What's not to like? It's really good. I love it. It's early access. There's a lot to keep putting on. You play it once or twice. You're like, okay, let's let it finish. Frozen Heim. City Builder, Vikings. Do you know I talked last year about the game Oh shoot, I forget the name of it, but we're moving on. It's like as your villagers move through the grass, they create paths. Okay, Frozenheim does that. And I'm going to tell you right now, developers, if you put that in your game, you're already making this list.
Jared
I don't
likes
care what the game is. It is so good.
Hey, they do that in Death Stranding. Spoilers.
It's on my list. Death Stranding, game of the year. Rustler. It is old school top down GTA, but you know, GTA's trilogy released and it sucked. Go get Rustler instead. This game is hilarious. It's medieval GTA top down. It's 9 out of 10. Tiny little game, Gallantry. It's all about just jousting and traveling around to different cities, like tournament style. It's super simple. Like, it was like $5 when I bought it. It was like not even on sale, I don't think. Like, one guy developing it. It didn't try to be anything more than it was. I loved it. It was so cool. It was a great little fun experience. And going medieval. You know what's really great about RimWorld is that game. You put it in a medieval setting, it's still good. Going medieval's awesome. Cheers to 2021.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
Cool.
There's a lot of cool games this year, guys. I couldn't nominate them all.
Finally, the last thing we wanted to do, and you all know, if y'all listen to the Game By Show on the regular, you know that we don't play the latest and greatest all the time. So we wanted to take a moment to highlight the best game that we discovered and played this year, but that did not come out this year. I think we've all picked one game for this, right?
Single game.
Yeah, just one.
One game.
Single game.
One game we're going to talk about.
5 minutes,
minutes
and it's going to
or
be
less.
still a little brief, little mention. But I picked for this Death Stranding. This is the game that pulled me away from Final Fantasy XIV for 60 hours of gameplay. Death Stranding. It's a game that, being a Kojima, Metal Gear Solid fan, a game that I knew that I would probably eventually want to play. And this year, I finally pulled the trigger and played it. And despite everything you hear about this game, about how it is and the mechanics and what the actual gameplay is, something about it really, really got its hooks in me.
It is the ultimate walking simulator.
It is, but it isn't. It is, but eventually gets to the point where you're not doing that. And you're building this network of zip lines, and you've got trucks, and you've got motorcycles, and you've got bridges. And oh, by the way, everyone is like a network, like the online component of everyone is contributing components and building different things in the world that you can access and utilize in your game as well. And that stuff was a very, very unique thing, and it made Death Stranding stand out more, to be more than just a package delivery game, on top of the wackadoo story that Kojima cooked up for it. Outside of that, the way that the networking happened and the online, and while you didn't ever see somebody online, you're like, oh, here's a ladder that this guy left for me, here's a bridge that this dude built, or here's a zip line, node that somebody added to here that I can access and use in my game. And it kind of made you feel like you were playing this game, online with multiple players, despite never seeing anybody else in the game. And that made it feel cool. It made it feel good. And it was a neat trick. It was a neat trick that they did to make it feel like it was greater than, or bigger than it was, I guess. And I mean, Kojima took the story in places where you would expect Kojima to take stories, and it was crazy weird. And I ended up watching like videos after I got done playing the game to try to piece together what the hell was going on. And they basically explained the game, and it was still crazy. And that's okay. Because at the end of the day, the story isn't what drove me in this game. It was just the doing the thing and the fighting the Death Stranding, the ghosts and the rain, the timefall rain and all that weird stuff. Like, it was just great. It was fun. It was a game that I kind of needed, I guess. A kind of a pull down from Hunt Showdown, a pull down from Final Fantasy's story that I was just kind of, I'm not going to say slogging because I was enjoying it, but kind of, I played a lot of Final Fantasy story this year. And Death Stranding was a nice kind of excursion away from that. So that's my #1 game that I discovered this year that came out. I believe end of 2019 is when this game came out, and it was good. It's awesome. Death Stranding.
Very nice.
Totally.
My game
recommended.
that's old. I feel kind of guilty about this, so I've got a guilty answer for this, which is that this is a game that I think was actually one of my games of the year 2 years ago, and it's coming back because Star Wars Squadrons. I wanted from the very beginning to play it in VR and to play it with a hands-on throttle and stick. And you might remember Joystick July 2 years ago. Jared and I went through, played nothing but joystick games.
Month.
It was awesome. Like, that was way cool. And we were sort of doing that in the run up. But the problem was that those PlayStation 4, because that's where I've got my VR, right, is the PlayStation 4 headset. I couldn't get a stick until this past month. I put it in the Discord server that it was on sale. You could get it for like $50 instead of like the 80 or 90 or whatever. And I did it and I got it. And it's everything I wanted it to be. Like, it's so good to play.
I even tried sending him one and it didn't work.
It was a PC stick. I've got two of
it had a PlayStation mode.
But it doesn't work. I tried it. It didn't. So anyway,
it was PlayStation 3.
It might have been. It might have been that. But
were you playing this on PlayStation 5 VR?
No, I mean, you could do it on PlayStation 5, but it would be like.
I would be curious to see the difference in VR quality between the two systems.
I doubt it's significant. I don't, as far as I know. So I don't have much more to say about it, other than that is like from my boyhood. That is one of the only things that I wanted from video games as a thing, you know, was to be able to sit in a starfighter and to have, you know, a joystick and to be able to like look. I've been doing it like Top Gun, right? Have you guys ever watched Top Gun and noticed the editing? How the director of Top Gun made it so that you can follow the action when Tom Cruise is like they look and see the jet flying by, and then they cut to some like unrelated version, like footage of some air, but it makes it work. And so I'm like looking out my cockpit, looking at I'm doing the whole thing, and it's awesome. So I feel a little bit guilty that this is actually something that was a game of the year.
I'm coming over to try this
2 years ago. Please come over and try it out. I want you to try it out. So I'm going to throw in just one like real answer, which is The Witness. Which I played a bunch of this year. And Dale got me thinking about it when he talked about this like years ago. And everything that he said about it was true. It teaches you a vocabulary, a grammar as it goes through the game. And it's amazing to see. And again, I'm doing that thing that Jared says I do, which is my children. Like, to watch my children play through these, like, to watch them think about this, and not even in just the way like you're watching them play Tetris and put a block the way that it goes, but to watch the synapses fire and to watch them make some connections for something that is totally foreign, and to see how Jonathan Blow and his team made this thing to be such a deliberate process of learning and teaching and letting the player grow along with the game has been fabulous. And so I was playing it, and my kids watched me playing it, and they're like, "Dad, I want to play this." And so they played it, and I watched them, and I gave them very minimal hints, just like let them struggle with it. And it was really a thing to see. And that happened to me this year when the PlayStation 5, you know, like added it to the instant game collection. I installed it. I even let it sit for like 3 or 4 months. And then I finally tried it out when I was bored, and it just captured me, and it's awesome. So I'm cheated a little bit. I have one that was kind of guilty, and then one that is maybe my real answer, but both of those were games that were older that really did it for me this year in 2021.
Nice.
Cool. Again, I have just chosen one. This is an older game that I got into.
Per the rules.
I make no apologies. I did wrong.
Again, so Shenzhen IO was the game. This is a Zachtronics puzzler. If you recall, this was the one that has the extremely hardcore, like 75-page PDF
manual. I remember you talked about this.
That you're meant to print out and sort of leaf through as you're working through the puzzles in the game. And the story of the game is that you've moved to Shenzhen in China from like Indiana University or somewhere, I don't know. And you have a job as like a circuit maker, somebody who designs electronics and, you know, puts all the little chips and programs, does a little programming for them. And that's what the game is. And it's bizarre, but it's also genius, just like a lot of the Zachtronics puzzle type games, like Opus Magnum or
Opus Magnum,
Space Cam, stuff like that. They're like, they make you feel like you're just like the smartest person ever, right? Until you get to that one where you're like, I just can't figure this out. What
I've
is
bounced off
wrong?
of Opus Magnum twice now, and I really want to get into it. I really want to. 'Cause
Opus
I heard the
Magnum
way
is
it
so
captured
good.
both of you guys. and I
So
just
good.
want
I
that.
finished it. I can't believe and I went back and played more of it. It's
I
actually
didn't
so good.
I didn't quite finish it, but I must have gotten most of the way through it. Just I got to one where it was like, oh, okay, I don't have the bandwidth to do this right now or whatever. But yeah, Shenzhen I is the same thing. This one was actually a lot more difficult early on, just because it was like concepts I was not really familiar with, but looking through the PDF and like trying to figure stuff out, like I did get a decent way into it. And this one actually also has a really, really good version of solitaire built into it. That's like, it's like where there's like 3 suits, right? And it's like, I forget what it is now. It's been a while since I played, but there's like dragons, and there's like the 4 winds and something else that like there's like tricks to the way that this solitaire works. It is. But yeah, in the tradition of the like side game that Opus Magnum also had, yeah, this one continues that, and it's just it's the type of game that like I found like so interesting and so fulfilling, but is also like very difficult to recommend to anybody, because like normal person at like your work or whatever would just be like, you want me to play what? It's got like a PDF. What? I'm supposed to do homework for this? Why are you crazy?
It limits its own audience just by the nature of its being.
Yeah, it does, but it's so cool. So if you think it might be for you, check it out. It's a good game.
Very nice.
So if you guys have like listened to our podcast in the past, I don't know, 6 months, you know what I'm gonna talk about.
We're retiring it from the podcast tonight.
No, we can't. We
Make
can't.
the most
so
of it, because this is it.
Here's why we can't. Because my fledgling PC gaming career started back 1997-98 time frame with this game, Ultima Online. One of the first MMOs ever, and I stopped playing in like 2001. Like, it was it. I moved on, played EverQuest for a while, never really looked back. Every now and then you'd pop into a free shard, be like, hey, what's this about? You play for a week and kind of move on. So back earlier this year, March, April, May timeframe, I forget exactly when, I found a server that had launched in 2018 called UO Outlands, and they took the core mechanics of UO. It's all based on the same game, all the same engine, everything. And they threw out the world, they threw out the lore, not all of it, but they made their own. They made their own game based on this very elder statesman of the MMO genre, and it's awesome. Like, I don't know what else to say. I went from being like, hey, I'm gonna like jump in, I want to do some like role playing, because that's what I remember Ultima being awesome for, because you just like get to the end and you're like, well, now what do I do? I guess I'll be an orc. Right? But I now like lead an entire guild of people that role play as knights. We have a city town, you can see it here, like a fortress. There's like I have like all these like story threads. I've written stories, and it is like a whole nother world. And I built it up around this free-to-play shard that these nerds made and run and host. And, I cannot say enough about how good it is, about the thought they put into the different systems they've changed, the skills they've modified, what they've added to it, how they've breathed life into a 24-year-old game and made it feel new again. UO Outlands is a new game. This server came out in 2018. I just started playing it this year. I don't know. Jeremy got to have 2 games. I'm telling you right now, this is my Gamebyties game of the year, period. All this other 2021 crap was garbage. Don't even look at it. Go get Outland. No, those games were great. UO, it always has a place in my heart, and this place rekindled it. And I don't know how you like top that, honestly. So UO Outlands is the game I discovered this year that is old, that is really old, that is just really awesome. And I can't say enough. Hey, if you guys want to try it, hit me up in Discord. I'd be happy to walk you through some of the steep learning curve because I love it. It's great. UO Outlands.
Fair play. Fair
Game
play.
Byties.
Well done. Listeners, that is going to do it for 2021. The year is officially over,
That's
and
it.
we have presided
Yes.
over the best video games of that year.
We nailed it.
Roll on 2022 with the Game Bytes Show podcast. If you are watching us on YouTube, thank you very much for joining us. Make sure to check out GameBytesShow.com, where you can check out the syndicated podcast, share it with your friends. If you have any thoughts about the video games that we didn't talk about this year, if you want to agree with us about the things that were the best this year, let us know on social media. You can find us on Twitter at GameBytesShow. You can also reach out to us and berate us individually for our poor decision making. You can find me at Jeremy_Lamont.
You can find me at Jeremy_Lamont. Kidding. You can find me at Legrand.
I am at Count Elmdor.
Now I'm at Red_I.
As I mentioned, you can find us, of course, at youtube.com/GameBytesShow. Like and subscribe, guys. Hit that alarm bell. You can be notified when we go live. You can find us at GameBytesShow.com. There's also there a link to the Discord server that Jared was talking about. Come join us, hang out with us, and ride along with us for 2022, because there's a whole lot of video games coming down the pipeline, and we'd love for you to take that joyride with us. Of course, we will be back here on the YouTube channel as well, youtube.com/GameBytesShow. That's where we go live every week, so you can see this, the completely unfiltered edition of this, but of course our more highly produced version of
Actually
the show comes
good.
out. Yeah, maybe days later, but we eventually get it out there, so you can subscribe to us on your podcasting app of choice. And of course, we will be back next week and next year and whatever. Who knows? We're just going to keep doing this thing.
We might
support
just
us,
record forever.
Yeah, whatever. Share it with your friends, whatever. Like and subscribe, like I said, all of that stuff. And folks, we will be back, and we enjoy being your podcast host for this Game Bytes Show podcast in 2022. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.